What historical figure was a horrible person despite everyone thinking they were great? Steve Jobs. Refused to acknowledge his daughter until forced. Provided no help or support during her upbringing. Treated his employees and business partners like shit. Getting people fired for no good reason and then sending smiley faces when the firing was confirmed. WTF for real? Maybe not everyone, but historically in Belgium, King Leopold II, they've only recently started taking down his statues. Wow, I only know him as a monster. Has he typically been a revered figure in modern Belgium? My thought was, who thinks he was great? Einstein wasn't a great guy. Brilliant, sure, but kinda douchey in his personal life. He refused to marry his longtime lover for years. Even after she got pregnant, the child was assumed to be given up for adoption. But no record has ever been found. He and his wife, Maliva Mary, worked together on their research. People saw them do it. They made jokes about it at parties. He proudly told people that she did all his calculations. They only put his name on their work and he went on to claim all the credit, ignoring any work she had done. Part of their agreement was that she would get the Nobel Prize money, but he tried to prevent that. She raised 2 children, one schizophrenic, took care of the house, and tutored to bring in extra money because he couldn't get a job for a long time. He started getting more notoriety and then began an affair with his first cousin. He moved to a different country to be with his new hillbilly mistress. He divorced his wife and quickly married the new, younger model. He had rules she had to abide by, such as leaving the room immediately when told and not expecting or asking for any sort of affection, except when necessary for appearance's sake. Elsa, his second wife, was dying and he worked non-stop because he didn't know what to do, I guess. She was basically abandoned her last few months. He cheated on both his wives numerous times, ignored his children. Oh, and he was pretty into his second wife's daughter and thought about marrying her instead. This really doesn't surprise me. Einstein always struck me as the sort of person who would be very stern and almost cold in his demeanor, and not somebody you would want to spend a lot of time around. He was undoubtedly extremely gifted intellectually, but I feel he had little patience for being around others. John Lennon as a symbol of peace kind of annoys me. Superb artist though. Edit. Just for the record, I love John Lennon the musician. As for John Lennon the person, I don't know, and I don't care. In fact, this isn't even an anti-John comment, the guy was human. My problem isn't with Lennon. It's with the people who idolize him. I understand it's difficult to separate those feelings, but you have to ducking hate that dude. A friend once tried to pick a fight with me because I said George was my favorite Beatle. Mother the sap. My father was a taxi driver in Australia, and one of his customers was a man who'd been raised in Mother the Sa's orphanage. He said she beat him terribly. Edit. Oh my goodness, thank you for the award. It is my very first. Plus telling extremely poor people that they shouldn't use birth control is wildly irresponsible and damaging. Although of course it's no surprise she did. I mean, it's literally part of her religion that anyone who does that gets punished in the afterlife. Some forever and some only in purgatory. Not warning them would, in her mind, be condemning them to eternal torture instead of 16 to 20 years of increased poverty on earth. You know, from both her perspective and the perspective of her religion. Gandhi. After learning all the colorist and racist shit he would say to those who had darker complexion or those of African descent in my 8th grade year, I haven't seen him the same. Tried to nuke me in Civ 5 as well. Yes, integer negative overflow. Thomas Edison, the classic corporate giant, stealing and claiming the ideas of his subordinates. Didn't he electrocute an elephant? Topsy. Benito Juarez, he was the type of president who kills his opposition instead of negotiating. He did a lot of illegal executions. He was going to be executed in Guadalajara. However, one of his ministers convinced the soldiers not to kill him with the famous phrase alto los valientes no asesinan. The soldiers forgave his life and risked this as the disobey an order. Well, as soon as Juarez returned to Mexico City, he immediately ordered to kill all of those soldiers with no mercy. Source: my sister worked with the sergeant's descendant after Juarez's government. There's a period known as the Porfiriato, where Porfirio Diaz was Mexico's president for 30 years. It was possible, just because there was no opposition alive. Juarez suddenly died in 1872 from a heart attack. It's believed that a woman, to avenge his husband, worked on his home as a maid, and when she had the opportunity, she put an infusion of Vintia Miller, a herb known by the natives for being poisonous, and cause a heart attack 21 days. Vintindias. After it was drank, Mussolini was named after him. Pretty much all of them. As the saying goes, great men are almost always bad men. If you want history to remember you, murder a lot of people, rape their women, or men. The Greeks were a thing. Conquer their domains. Make sure you leave none alive to counter your story. Then, write your own legend, and wait a couple of centuries, and you'll be lauded for all the good you did. A close second is invent something cool. But nobody remembers who invented the wheel, or lever, or the zipper, or the button. So, murdering a bunch of people probably has higher odds of fame. Edit. Though it should be said, we don't erect statues of people because of the bad things they did, but rather the beneficial things. The wheel and lever were invented before writing. There were probably some brutal conquerors from that era whose names nobody knows, because they were never written down. Societies weren't as big either, so there was a limit to how many people they could murder. Bill Cosby, America's dad, up until those allegations started. I don't know why or how, but when I was a kid seeing him on TV his creepy meter went off. Something about him felt wrong. Cliff Huxtable was my least favorite character on the Cosby Show, until Raven showed up. Henry Ford was a hardcore racist. He was even given Nazi medals. This was before America's involvement in the war. I mean, the Hindenburg was covered in swastikas when it flew over the states and eventually crashed. We were industrial allies with the Nazis until shit hit the fan. Woodrow Wilson. Guy was majorly racist. Segregated the military. Kicked black people out of the government. He screened a KKK movie in the White House and was a strong defender of the KKK. Even for his time he was considered racist. Hans Sprungfeld. Or perhaps you remember him by Jebediah Springfield. You bite your silver tongue. Jebediah Springfield embiggens us all. It's a perfectly cromulent theory. Joseph Smith. Child rapist and conman. Worshipped by millions of Mormons. Go figure. Charles Lindbergh. He was Nazi sympathizer, a member of the eugenic movement, and he fathered at least 7 children, with 3 women, while married. Real scummy character. I still think he was the catalyst behind his son's kidnapping and murder. There's a rumor that he had his son killed because he had a handicap which didn't go well with his eugenic beliefs. Oliver Cromwell tried to make England a republic, ended up being a king in all but name, butchered the Irish, banned Christmas, and is partially responsible for the Puritans, who fled to America after the monarchy was restarted. People think Cromwell was a good guy. I'm not British, but as a guy with an interest in history I thought it was pretty obvious that he was not a good guy. He literally dissolved parliament and set himself up as ruler for life in what was essentially a military dictatorship after leading an anti-royalist revolution, where his son succeeded him after his death just to really rub it in. And to call his treatment of non-Protestant Christians persecution is an understatement. Mother Teresa was not as saintly as advertised. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.